Milo, is that you?
There, I think I got it. All right, now we can go. Everything is done. Dave, thanks for reminding me to plug in my microphone.
My pleasure.
So yes, you're correct. This is where we get to talk smack about our guest. Is there anything specific you'd like to say? And we also like to turn off our cameras because, number one, you don't want to look at me, and number two, I don't particularly want to look at you.
It sucks up bandwidth, right?
It sucks up bandwidth, and you just actually the conversations aren't as good when you can see each other. It just is like you're kind of like, you know, some people are looking at the photos. And they're kind of like looking at you, like looking at the other person, waiting to see what's happening. It's much better without the cameras on. Even though we're all in the same studio in Busted Knuckle, Kentucky. But we have cameras because the studio is so big. And the table's so big that we're sitting around. So, okay, that voice you hear is none other than Dave Owens, who lives just outside of Hartford, Connecticut, in the town of...
West Hartford, Connecticut.
West Hartford, Connecticut. Is that actually a town, or is that just a part of the metropolis?
That is a separate town.
Okay. Move your microphone away from your nose a little bit.
Away? Okay.
Actually, you know what? Take the foam off. We're trying a new experiment where we're taking the foam off the end of these microphones to see if that helps.
How does that sound?
Sounds good.
Sound any better?
It sounds good so far.
Is it too muffled or too close or too far away?
No, it's okay. It's just that some people breathe. Some people are heavy breathers. And I don't know.
Well, I do enjoy respirating.
How about you, Queso? Do you enjoy respirating?
I find it to be a necessary evil.
Oh, yeah, okay. All right. So some people just have giant nostrils, and it seems like that foam picks it up beautifully.
Interesting, because I would think the foam deadens that.
Yeah,
the foam is supposed to be a windscreen.
It's supposed to be, but I think in this particular case, because I'm not buying the most expensive headsets, I think it's working the opposite way.
Ah, good to know.
Yeah, well, at the end of but don't throw it away. At the end of the interview, put the phone back on the microphone.
I will.
Because you never know. We might discover something and decide, hey, the foam should stay. Or we might...
Makes perfect sense.
Or we might find out that if you put a piece of... you know what we're waiting for is tables, the table master to figure it out, because he figures everything out. That's Scott Lister, our buddy Scott Lister. So anyways, David, you're here it's the three of us, the Queso Cowboy, David Owens, and yours truly, the Evil Overlord. And tonight we have a whole brand new guest. This is an episode, Monday episode with a brand new guest that we've never had as a guest on here. He's been interviewed a couple of times. He was interviewed at NERPM there a few months ago.
Excuse me.
Yeah. Thank you. How's the hotel thing going?
We're good. We've got a hotel. We've got a contract. We're ready to go.
You haven't alienated them yet?
Not yet. We will do our best not to.
How many hotels is this in how many years? In the most recent?
This is our fourth hotel in 8 or 9 years.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
You guys just open them up and close them.
I'd like to think we're not at fault, but I'm sure we are.
Yeah.
You'd like to think that, wouldn't you?
I would like to think that.
Put your phone...
Is this also in Springfield?
It is. It's the Sheraton right in downtown Springfield. It's a nice hotel, and this will allow us to have every event for the meet on one floor, relatively close together, and I think it's going to be great.
What kind of parking do they have?
There is a parking area beneath the hotel that charges, but there's also the MGM Casino in Springfield, which has free parking, which is a 5 or 7 minute walk from the hotel. So cost-conscious modelers can park at MGM and walk up.
Cost-conscious modelers.
Of which we know there are many.
Hey, it's perfectly reasonable. So that is an option for folks.
Cost-conscious, a.k.a. cheap.
I prefer cost-conscious.
I prefer cosmetically challenged, too. But some people are just, hard to look at. How much does it cost to park at the Sheraton?
I think it's $10 a day.
Oh, that's not bad.
No, it's not unreasonable. And your car will be in a secure area where you don't need to worry about anything.
Is it a secure area or is it just...
It is. It's right beneath the hotel. There are cameras and whatnot, and then an elevator directly into the hotel lobby.
Okay, so it's underground parking under the hotel.
Yes.
Oh, sweet. All right. So, all right. And I suppose at next year's show, just like at this year's show, you'll have some Rapido Trains.
Rapido Trains, your fast track to model railroading fun.
Rapido Trains, your fast track to model railroading fun.
Yeah, I think because the queso's here, you should just stand back, Dave.
All right, I'll stand back. Sorry. Sorry, Tom. Stepping on your toes.
Hey, not a problem. I was impressed.
I wasn't because
in there
because he repeated Rapido Trains.
Yeah, I was thinking that was a screw up, but I was just imitating Tom.
Well, no, because I don't say Rapido Trains.
Well, I think he just said you're a screw up, Tom.
No, I realized that once I had Rapido Trains out, I blew it, but I sort of rallied by recalling how Tom does it.
So apparently, Tom, you're a bit of a screw up.
I've been called that before.
I thought that was a compliment.
The beauty of these podcasts, David, is they're recorded, and you'll hear yourself again, and then you can make a determination once you've heard it.
Alrighty.
All right. But you did. It was a valiant effort. I got to give you credit for that, because we love our Rapido Trains.
Your fast track to model railroading fun.
If it's N, if it's H-O, the fast track is Rapido.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right, enough with that. We'll dispense with the commercials. We've killed 7 minutes. Somebody has to go get our guest out of the green room, and it's John Frantz, a gentleman that both of you fellas know. Dave, could you go and get him?
Absolutely.
Oh, hey, Dave. Yeah. I'm sorry, man. These green shrimp
John,
are. Yeah.
Well, I'd go with the quay hogs. They're blue.
Oh, okay.
Hey, we're ready for you. Come on up.
Okay. Yeah. I guess I'll leave this food here and
the sushi's from a gas station, so give that a try too.
Well, some people like gas station food, but I'm not one of them. So.
How
you doing, guys?
Good. It's good. We're just adjusting David's microphone. Hey, David, move your microphone either out and up a little bit. We got to get away from your nostrils.
Is that better?
I'll
try to breathe less.
It's too far away now.
How about now?
That's good.
All right. I'll try to breathe less.
Well, I would have thought that Dave was interviewed enough. He would have had the line tattooed on the side of his face by now.
Yeah. Well, this microphone is new to him. He hasn't had it much longer than you've had yours, John.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, because we hooked him up because we wanted to get him on the show more often to help promote NERPM and all the other things that go on in the Northeast, of which David is always the center of. Is that correct, Dave? Is that what you told me to say?
Yes, absolutely. I'm a helper. I'm a volunteer.
All right, John. So I got to start off this particular interview by telling you I'm kind of annoyed at you.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Did you? Did that already play?
No, but when you messaged me on Facebook, I kind of got the message, and it was, oh no, what did I do now to make Lionel mad at me?
Don't do that. Right. Yeah, right. I said I was mad as hell at you.
Yeah.
That's right. Because I was interviewing, David and I were doing the opening and closing for NERPM Interviews Part 2. And we got around to mentioning your name. Or were you on part 1?
I was in part 1.
Okay. Well, we got around to mentioning your name somehow. Somehow we talked about you. And David mentioned that you have this thing called Mount Vernon Shops.
Yeah.
That
was one of the...
Which I'd never heard of. And I'm like, why would you and I talk for a half an hour and you never mentioned it once?
Well, it's part of the joy of being interviewed by you, Lionel, that I start to go down that path and then we go down a tangent and we never come back.
Oh, okay.
So I started to go down that road, but we just never finished.
Oh, okay. But Mount Vernon Shops, how long have you had that?
So when we were at NERPM, you asked me about my journey to get to Rapido. What really happened there was, as I said, in 2003, 2004, I started working for Custom Model Railroads down in Baltimore for a little bit with Jeff Springer. And in the meantime, he had a laser and he was doing a lot of custom laser cut structure kits out of acrylic. And I asked, and he was fine with me making my own structures. So I started to create my own line of Pennsylvania Railroad structure kits. That was fine, but I found out that the overhead of trying to keep structures in stock to sell was pretty high for, a kid fresh out of college at the time. So because of the software that was compatible with Jeff Springer's laser, he used CorelDRAW. So I self-taught myself how to use CorelDRAW to work for him and design custom structures, but also it's a great graphic design software. It's very similar to Adobe Illustrator. Everybody has their own brand. It's just like cars. Some people like Chevy, some people like Fords. So I learned how to use Corel, and that's kind of what I've been primarily using as my Illustrator background software for a while now. So doing structures was fine, but as I said, the overhead got to be much. So then, I'm a model railroader. I learned how to decal. I had cars that were brass that had no good decals available for them. So I started to create a line of decals instead. And I kind of abandoned doing the structures in favor of doing decals. And what happened was I was creating decals for models I needed, lettering for. So also at that time, Champ Decal, they were the standard bearer for years for great decals, but unfortunately they started to slide away and eventually the company disappeared. And also for me, I felt, Champ decals were fine, but usually you could only get 1 or 2 cars out of a set. Whereas as a modeler, I'd want to do more than that. So I was doing decal sets that could do 4 to 6 cars in a set. As a modeler, that's a great thing to have. So I created a decal line, and as I was working through models I had, I would make decals, and then eventually enough other people found out about them that I created a website and have been selling decals ever since. And I've been able to do some pretty cool custom sets for friends. I do some custom decorating every now and then. As I get older, I don't do that as much anymore. But also I've been able to take my skills learned from doing decals and use it and apply it to 12 inch to the foot modeling. So I've provided lettering or stencils for full-size freight car restorations. So I've done it for now 3 cars at the Age of Steam Ran House out in Sugar Creek, Ohio.
It sounded like you said foot modeling.
Okay, it's 12. The joke is 12 inch to the foot modeling. So there's 12 inches in 1 foot.
Okay.
But I've basically been doing 1-to-1 modeling.
Because it kind of that kind of creeped me out when I thought you said foot modeling.
No, I'm not one of those.
Like, I know Dave, he'd be ideal for it, but
I don't know. People pay good money for that.
They pay great money for that. Are you kidding me? That's huge, though.
They're usually German businessmen.
Dave, how do you know this?
Yeah, how do you know, Dave? Okay, so you were helping with the restoration of what?
So there's groups that have freight cars that are Pennsylvania Railroad and Heritage that they needed full-size lettering for, and they've heard through the grapevine that I'm good at providing accurate lettering. What really irks me is people pay for a good restoration job, and then they get substandard, not standard lettering for what would be correct for their equipment. So typically what I've done is for nonprofits, I have basically provided lettering free of charge. I'd rather them get it right for free than charge for something wrong. Now, in some cases, though, people have, insisted on paying me. I'm now actually a registered contractor with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that I've provided lettering for restoration projects at the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania in Strasbourg.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did some vinyl stenciling for them last year and actually got paid for the job.
Well, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, it's fun to have friends that know that I have skills and are willing to pay me for those skills.
Well, sure, and it is a legitimate skill that people need, so you got to be paid for it.
And of course, it helps, fund my hobby. If you can, do something you love and get paid to do it, that's the greatest thing in life.
Well, yeah, for
That's
sure.
exactly, that was exactly very similar path that you outlined to my little decal business that I've had for a while. It started out same thing, self-taught on Corel Draw just because I needed things that I couldn't get. So I learned how to create decals and I had them produced and I had the ones that I needed for myself, and then I sold the rest. And there was a market for them.
Yeah, and I do believe, Tom, that's actually how you and I got to be pretty good friends. That you and I were comparing notes.
Right, we were comparing notes, and we were also making sure that we didn't step on each other's toes.
Very true.
In terms of offering, offering the same sets or things like that.
And then there's me, who buys 40 microscale lettering sets to do a fleet of freight cars and sort of has to cut corners and use what's available. Where were you guys when I was doing my project?
Yeah, and I was going to say, there's guys like you, and then you find out, wait, there was a better decal set out there that you could have bought.
Yeah.
And
45 cars in.
Yeah, and now we're going down that road with your flat car fleet. So
thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
Am I still here?
Yeah, you're here.
So Tom, are you still doing your decal thing? Decal thing?
Not really. I shouldn't exactly say that. I still have a stock of decals on hand, and if somebody buys them on the website, I certainly ship them out and take their money. But I've had problems. Rail Graphics was my original supplier, and they have retired and sold their business to the San Juan Car Company. And I've tried working with the San Juan Car Company to have some of my out-of-stock sets reprinted, and I've had no luck. They've just been too backed up and too busy to do them for whatever reason. So I'm still looking for another reliable supplier. I did do some work a few months ago with Highball Graphics. Actually, I worked with them on a couple projects. Number one was the Hershey Foods boxcars. Hershey Chocolate had its own fleet of boxcars that were used to serve the chocolate plants. And so there was a bunch of us modeling the Reading that wanted these boxcars with accurate decals. So a couple of us worked together with Highball to have those produced, and then we basically created the artwork, and Highball is printing them out and producing them, and they're the ones that are selling them. And actually, Bill Schneider from Rapido Trains, your fast track to model railroading fun, helped with some of the design work on that set. That was probably like a year or two ago that I was involved with that. More recently, I worked with Highball to create a set of decals for the 60-foot XLL class Reading auto parts boxcars. And Bill Schneider helped me with that again. There was one particular piece of the artwork that I needed some help with, and I emailed Bill, and within 20 minutes I had it back. So here again, I'm not actually the one offering those or selling those, but my name is on the decal set. If you buy it from Highball, you'll see artwork by Tom Jacobs. And then there's a little slip in there with thanks to the 3 or 4 other individuals that helped me with prototype information and photos and everything to get that set where it needs to be.
Huh. All right. And do you print your own, John, or do you get somebody to do it?
Well, much like Tom, we did the same thing for a while. That I also used Rail Graphics up until the point that Ron Roberts decided that he wanted to retire, and I respect that. At the same time, I had also, and Ron had a good thing going. He was everybody's go-to for the better part of 30 years, at least in the
absolutely.
industry.
He did all my decals for years.
Yeah. We're also fortunate that, Ron had some, it was a decent business model for guys that wanted to start out, but didn't want to break the bank by getting a lot of decal sets. So that's why his minimum runs were only 25 or 50 sets. At the same time, I had some opportunities to work on some larger decal sets. I jokingly refer to them as my monsters, and it's because of the size. And that's because microscale, you can actually get decals custom printed by them at their standard sheet size, which is 4 3/4 wide by 7 3/4 tall. So I was getting some custom stuff printed by them. At the time, their minimum was 125 sheets in a run, which I know can seem like a lot to swallow, but their price algorithms made it affordable to do. And so I did that with a few things, a lot of multicolor sets that I had done. You need to learn to work within their print parameters, though. So when you're doing multicolor or stuff with an outline, you need to realize that sometimes the print heads don't always have dead nuts alignment. So you need to give yourself a little bit of extra wiggle room, or things will look like they bounce around. So I would have microscale custom print some of my decals. After Ron Roberts with Rail Graphics decided to retire, I experimented with a few people, including Highball. And I had Highball print a lot of my sets for me in all kinds of colors. Then one of our very own, Jerry Britton, posted on his layout blog that he bought himself a new HP multifunction printer and bought a Ghost White toner cartridge from a company over in Germany called Ghost White Toner. And they actually, it's a laser printer, and you take out the black laser printer cartridge and replace it with a white toner cartridge. And then when you draw it, everything that's black prints in white instead of black. So then I've bought bulk orders of regular 8.5 by 11 decal paper for microscale, and then printed my own white and black decals. I can do it that way. When I still need to do multicolor custom work, I will usually have Jim do it for me at Highball because of the alignment, and also the issue of when you do anything that's multicolor, you want it to have an opaque white background. So this way the body color of the model does not affect the color of the decal when you apply it to the model.
Run that one by me again.
So when you have a color decoration to apply to a model, you want it to have a white backing to it. So this way the color is actually fully opaque against the side of the car. Otherwise, it's like printing color, but on a clear piece of paper. And when you take that clear piece of paper off the backing, it's like a see-through color. Think of it like a film that you would apply to a light in Broadway. Similar to what Stephen Atwell should do in lighting his Broadway things, that to tint a light, you would put the color on the piece of paper and put it there. But if you put a piece of paper between the film and the light, then no light will come through. So this is why you also put a white backer on that color. So when you apply it to the model, the decal color is still full and rich, and it isn't affected by the color of the model.
Did anybody understand what he said?
Yeah.
They're good. Maybe explain it to me someday.
Okay, Lionel. So
I don't need to know. I'm sure most people. Dave, did you get it? Did you understand?
Think of it as putting 2 coats of paint on a model as opposed to 1 coat of paint. If you just put 1 coat of paint, whatever's underneath is going to show through. This is like 2 coats of paint, so that you're seeing the paint and not the underlying car.
But it's not a white.
model.
It's not a white backing. It's a clear backing, isn't it? Like,
Well, the film itself is clear, but you can print white on top of that and then print color on top of the white. So this way it's opaque. So a good way to explain this, Lionel, would be if you wanted to decorate, a caboose or something for your short line, the Allegheny and Lackawanna Southern. If the model was blue and you just printed regular yellow on that clear film and put that yellow with no white backing on the blue model, it would actually look greenish on the model.
yeah,
But if you put a white backing behind it, then it would still look yellow when you put it on the model.
this sounds like something that you shouldn't try to explain to Lionel. He'll just take the decals and put them on. So it's just like,
Well,
But if the person who made the decals did a good job, you don't have to worry about it.
I don't have to worry about it. Exactly. I don't care if we put white on the background. It's like I don't understand it. So do I need to understand it? Not really. It throws me off when technical guys use the technical. You put white on the back. Well, you don't. I don't. Because it comes off clear. So it's like whatever. I'm sure you're completely correct, and I have no need to know any of this.
I can also tell you one of the neat things is when I started getting more runs of mine done by microscale, I asked them for color samples, and when they sent me color samples, they're like 2-inch by 2-inch squares, but half the square has white opaque backing and half the square has no backing, and you can actually see the physical difference between the color.
Okay, somebody's breathing right into their microphone, so we got to get that to stop. Everybody stop breathing. Try putting your phone back on there, John.
Okay, let's see.
The trick to these microphones is they basically need to be just at the tip of your nose so that they're close to your mouth, but not under your nostrils. This is all
okay.
That
This
sounds like
is back on
in the nostril.
Yeah, this is all quality podcasting, by the way. Bernard, I know you're listening to this. Bernard of miniprints.com. If you want anything printed in 3D, anything at all, anything from a Pennsylvania state trooper to a guy sitting in a Muskoka chair, you just contact Bernard at miniprints.com. And Bernard, I know you're listening to this, and this is all but this is why it's on the free channel. We were having that discussion. See, Bernard, this is on the free channel. We can't expect people to pay. It's quality stuff, John. It's just that we're all screwing around with the microphones, and I doubt if I'll take it out because it's quality podcasting.
It's marginally adequate.
Marginally adequate podcasting, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so how long have you had? So Mount Vernon Shops is a pretty catchy name. What is Mount Vernon Shops?
Well, when I was still working down at Custom Auto Railroads is when I started the business. And at the time, I floated around some different ideas for a business name. And Mount Vernon Shops came to mind because when I was working for Jeff Springer at Custom Auto Railroads, literally down the creek in Baltimore called the Jones Falls, was the original location of the shops of the Northern Central Railroad. And that was the Mount Vernon section of Baltimore. So it was literally called Mount Vernon Shops.
Yeah.
So that's why I used that.
Oh, okay. So this layout building business, John Springer's still going strong, isn't he?
Yeah, Jeff is still going strong.
Spring.
Yeah, you can see him at Springfield. He does come up and show his structures, and he's another one of these guys, just like some of your other guests that have built custom buildings for some guy named Rod Stewart. Yes, and he's also done some other really cool custom structure, custom builds. You can actually follow along on his Facebook page where he posts both his layouts and any structures he's working on. But I know from talking to Jeff, because I'm still very good friends with him, 20 years later, seems like a lifetime ago. It's really weird to catch up with him now and remember that his kids that I remember seeing in the shop are now out of college and making money on their own. But I know Jeff at this point, it's not that he's looking to retire, but he's looking to slow down, I guess. As everybody gets older, they want to do less and enjoy life more. So I think he's at the point that he's basically picking and choosing what layout projects he wants to build. And then otherwise, he does the structure kits to have a constant source of, income to support what he's doing.
So he has a Facebook page, did you say?
Yes.
And that would be
Custom Model Railroads.
Oh, okay. That's just that simple.
And I interviewed him at the Springfield show last year.
Yes, and then I contacted him actually not long after that to do a proper interview with him, and his wife had a very serious skiing accident.
Yes, and actually, his wife was with him at Springfield this year.
Oh, was she? Oh, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. Because when I happened to contact him, he was in Denver in the hospital with her because she'd had a very serious skiing accident. Man, he's got some spectacular structures here. Maybe we should stop talking to you, and I should contact him right now. I'm fascinated. Are you guys not fascinated by the fact that there are several model railroad layout builders, custom model railroad layout builders that make their living at it? Does that not fascinate you? It endlessly fascinates me.
It's very interesting, and I can see why for some folks it's the way to go. They have the resources, they may not have the time, and it's a great option. And they end up with a spectacular layout put together by one of these fellows who knows what he is doing.
Oh, absolutely. I have no... holy moly. I have no problem with the fact that people do this. They pay people to do it. I'm just fascinated that there's so many people that do pay to have layouts built, that there's several companies that do it. I mean, I've met, I don't know, half a dozen people that do this for a living, building model railroads. It just fascinates me that I just didn't think. That's how we know the hobby's way bigger than we think it is. That's one of the reasons. Because people can make a living just building model railroads.
And there's so many model railroaders out there, as many as we all know. There's so many more we don't know because they're lone wolves. And it'd be great to draw these people into the greater community of model railroaders, because I think it's a great way for people to get energized and just get more out of the hobby.
Well, and I think now with the internet, I don't think people can avoid being drawn in anymore. You're going to get sucked in whether you like it or not, because you're going to, I mean, man, I'm looking at some of the pictures of the layout he's building now. It's spectacular. Wow. Well, like you say, I absolutely believe, Dave. It's just like somebody getting locomotives custom weathered or whatever, anything else like that. I understand that there's people that just don't have the time or the drive or whatever. For whatever reason, they decide to get a layout built for them, which is fine. Like nothing wrong.
And what's great about Mount Vernon Shops is John has an interest in certain models, develops decals for them, and there's people like me who have those very same interests and are very happy to be able to buy his decals for the projects I'm working on. So that pursuit on his part is beneficial to so many others.
So how many different decal sets do you have in Mount Vernon Shops now?
Probably off the top of my head, I have around 100 sets at least.
And is it a pretty steady business? Like, are people pretty steadily calling you up and ordering decal sets, decal sets?
Pretty much. It ebbs and flows. It's kind of like when I bring in a new set, there's a lot of people initially buying that set, and then there's people like Dave. So I come out with a set, and then as he keeps, and I tease Dave because he's working on a very awesomely modeled military train. So as he keeps finding models to add to his train, then he keeps needing to buy more decals to accurately letter his freight cars. So I help feed that need. I help scratch the itch. But I it's funny. Back in 2015, I migrated to a new e-commerce platform on Shopify, so I can have a better handle on my stock and also how I take money and all that stuff. And I can tell you, last year I did over $4,000 in sales, Lionel.
Wow.
And just decals. Yeah.
So it's well worth your trouble to keep going and keep it alive.
Yeah. So and again, I can use that money and recycle it back into making more decal sets, and also it helps feed my own hobby. So yeah.
Right. And of that $4,000, Dave was responsible for 2,800 of it.
Well, that's between Dave and myself, and it is what it is.
Just 23.
People like Dave. Yeah, I know what you're saying. People like Dave. So Tom and John, have you ever guys exchanged decal sets, or are you guys doing two entirely different things?
We have not really crossed paths in terms of we haven't done the same set for the same type of car. I focus exclusively on Reading decals, whereas John does a little bit of everything. He's got some Penske stuff, some B&O, some C&O, some Conrail. He's got a much more diverse product offering than I do.
He sure does. I mean, it's like he's got tons and tons and tons. Is there a search engine on your? So for those who wonder, it's MountVernonShops.com. Mount, Mount, Vernon, Vernon, and shops, SHOPS.com. www.MountVernonShops.com.
So, Lionel, if you go to my webpage, and on the upper right, there is a search engine, but also if you click on the button on the left underneath the main menu that says catalog, there's a bunch of basically tags or hot words. So, it depends on there's stuff by road name, there's stuff by locomotive type, freight car type, and then by clicking on those decals will pop up and feed your need.
Right. If you do caboose, there's 10 different sets that come up when you type on caboose.
Yep.
So you kind of just make these as people request them, because here's an O-scale Pennsylvania Railroad cabin car decal. So I'm assuming that people just, when people ask you for a specific one, then you just add that to the catalog. Is that kind of what's happening now?
Usually, in that case, that was one of those that's really my only regularly stocked O-scale set, but I know there's enough of a need out there that people will want it. Again, when you interviewed me at NERPM, I talked about the guy that had the O-scale at in Gettysburg, and I remember from him and a lot of his friends that the O-scale brass market is insane. That all these great brass makers make these cars, but they don't always make decals to go with them. So that's why I thought it was worth the investment on my end to make that set as a regularly stocked decal set for me.
Right. Because you already made it anyway, so you might as well just stick it on the website.
Yeah, I like to joke that to go from HO to N scale, I have a shrinky dink machine, and then to go from HO to something bigger, you get some quarter sticks of dynamite and then blow it up.
Shrinky dink machine. So now a lot of these, half of that decals, your decals, half of them you're printing yourself then.
Yes.
So, okay.
For the most part, if they're white, I can print it myself.
Okay.
And 80% of what people need is either white or black.
So, but if you buy, if you have something multicolored, then you have to go to Highball Graphics and buy a certain minimum order. Is that the kind
I'll either go to Highball or I'll go to Microscale. So, yeah.
Okay. And do we have a choice? Is Highball or Microscale easier to work with, or you don't really care?
If I'm going to do a mass-produced set that is going to be the standard Microscale sheet size, I would go the Microscale route, strictly because of cost, even though it is a lot to swallow at. Now their minimums are 250 sheets per custom run. That being said, I don't want to speak specific to margins, but I can say that it's very good for me to it's worth my while to get it custom printed for microscale, and I can still sell it and make a profit. With highball, it's more beneficial for either doing small batch or custom runs when it comes to doing colors.
Okay. All right. So then, is there anybody left? Is Precision Design Company, are they still doing it? Is there anybody left doing custom decals, kind of like the Rail Graphics thing? I mean, that was the beauty of Ron at Rail Graphics.
Highball, there's Circuit City. Circus City.
Yeah.
There's somebody else called, not Protocraft. I saw an ad in Craftsman. There are a couple out there, Lionel, but they are Circus City and Highball seem to be the two other ones that I've seen or heard of the most.
Right.
That are most frequently used.
There's this precision design company, Bill Brillinger, who's actually located in Manitoba, but I know he does individual decal sets too. You guys should check him out.
And Lionel, to take this journey full circle, so this way I don't get another Facebook message from you. So, in addition, when I did the decal company, I picked up some clients in the Maryland area that had their own company called Spring Mills Depot. And initially, they were getting custom runs of freight cars done by Intermountain before they decided to try their hand in the ready-to-run plastic market. And they've created some specific B&O and chassis prototypes because it's what they like of ready-to-run models. So I was doing their artwork for them after their initial artist decided after the first run that he was going to double his price to get artwork done. So I started doing artwork for them, and that's how I kind of got into the industry side of model railroading. And I still keep doing some artwork for them. And so then when Rapido said that they were looking for somebody, that was basically the experience I had, that I could use that, and I jumped right into the job at Rapido.
So what is the depot place called?
It's Spring Mills Depot. Their website is smd.cc.
They make some great stuff too. They make some spectacular models.
They do. Are those the guys that made the caboose there a few years ago? I think so.
Yes.
What, the B&O wagon top?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They made that. Yeah.
They made beautiful Flexiflow cars, and they did the modern Department of Defense flat cars.
Yeah, the Flexiflow, the Flexiflow car that Spring Mills Depot, which was the PD3000, was actually my first hands-on freight car project, where I was the project lead on that up until the point that they were ready to send it off to the factory.
That's a great car.
It was kind of funny now that their principal, Bill Carl, teases me about it now, that back then, I'm calling him freaking out because you feel like you're chasing a boulder down a mountain and you can't catch it. And after that experience, I realized what it took to get an actual freight car made in the industry for the masses. So then when we did the DODX 68-foot flat cars, I was a lot more chill and wasn't freaking out about chasing a boulder down a mountain anymore.
They got a lot of cool stuff.
Oh, yeah, they make great stuff. Good guys, too. Good guys.
Yeah, we should get them on the podcast one of these days. We should get
them to make those wagon top covered hoppers again.
Well, yeah. Tom, and I can tell you guys at this point, they've announced some things that, like many in the industry, when the factory closed in China a few years ago, they were affected by that very heavily. So they're getting their feet back underneath them, and they want to get out what they've announced before they do any more second runs or new cars.
Well, the nice thing about those guys is they deliver on what they promise. Just spectacaboose models all around. Those DODX flat cars are magnificent. Yeah, those Flexiflow cars and those B&O cabooses, just great stuff.
And that was the thing. So they announced the B&O wood cabooses a while ago now, and it's been more than 5 years. And part of that issue was the Chinese factory closing. They got a new factory, and that's why they did the DODX flat cars first, because they wanted to test the factory before, instead of throwing the most detailed project at the factory for the first go round, they wanted to test the waters a little bit and give them something less detailed to see how they can handle it. So they were very happy with the way the DDX flat cars turned out. So they are making progress in finally delivering on those wood Beano cabooses.
Terrific.
Okay, we've had enough. Let's talk to those guys then.
Lionel, I can get you their contact info.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, like, let's stop talking to you right now, and then we'll call them up now, and we'll. Because we were going to do that with custom model railroads. See, and this is why I was mad at you, John, because you turned out to be a lot more interesting. You were interesting to begin with, but you guys know what I mean. There was a lot behind the curtain. That's the way I need to put it. There's a lot behind the curtain. Other than I thought you were just an annoying guy, and it turns out
I can be that too.
Okay. Yeah, well, you and I have still got to go a couple of rounds about helping me get my RS1 drawn too. I was not happy that you actually had to work for your boss instead of me.
I was very.
Oh, sure.
I was disappointed in me, but also I didn't want to disappoint you, and definitely didn't want to disappoint Jason. So.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure. You can still do stuff for Spring Mills Depot. But when I needed help, no, you were too busy.
You're welcome, Lionel. Hey, besides, Scott did a great project for you. It looks awesome.
Oh my God, did he ever? Well,
yeah.
The guy can draw. Like one day he goes, I mean, you know the story now. I've said it before. I was like desperate to try to get this RS1 drawn, and my wife does it, who knows nothing about trains at all, from a picture I took off the internet. And I was showing Scott and a couple of people. I said, "Do you think this is good enough for a T-shirt?" And he said, "Well, do you want me to draw it better?" And I'm like, yeah, sure, go ahead. Then I was thinking, oh, great. Now I'm going to have to tell him how great it is when it's done and it looks like crap. And then he sends it to me, and I'm like, wow. It's beautiful work. So I'm confused about your whole timeline, John. Let's see if I can understand this. You went to university of some sort for, what did you go to university for?
I have an associate's degree in computer-aided drafting.
Okay, so you went to university for drafting, computer drafting, to do CAD. You know what CAD stands for, eh?
Yeah, it's computer-aided drafting.
Yeah, exactly. Lex Parker taught me that years ago. I had no idea what it was, and everybody kept speaking in CAD language. I know I was going to ask you there earlier when you were talking, is Corel Draw still a viable company?
Yes. Corel has a graphics suite just like Adobe does. So just like Adobe has Photoshop and Illustrator and all that, you can get pretty much the same products from Corel. Because of my extensive work and learning curve doing stuff for Spring Mills Depot, I did also take some classes to learn Adobe Illustrator. So I am fluent on both platforms, and that was one of the selling points that Jason liked when he interviewed me for the job at Rapido.
Okay. All right, because you can use both Corel. Yeah, you never even hear about Corel Draw anymore. I mean, it's not like Adobe, where Adobe seems to be in your face at every turn. Corel Draw is kind of like, is it the poor second cousin?
Like I said earlier, they both do the same thing. It's a matter of what you like. As I said, some people like Ford, some people like Chevy. As a motorcycle guy, you like Harley. Some people like Indians.
Yeah. Okay, let me ask the other two guys in the room. How do you guys think of Corel Draw and Adobe as equals, or like I always thought of Adobe was more?
Adobe is definitely. Oh, I'm sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
I would just say Adobe has the better marketing budget.
Yeah. I mean, Adobe, they have, they definitely have a broader, because they have the PDF file format. They took over Macromedia at one point. They're the bigger company, and I think maybe they're more viewed as the, industry standard, so to speak, for some of this stuff. But and they have Photoshop, which is, it's just they're just kind of they're the big player, but just like Corel's just another, I don't want to say clone, but they're just another version of that type of program. Like I'll give you an example. Photoshop is, what everybody thinks of when they think of, editing photos or editing pictures. I have a program that I bought God knows how many years ago called Paint Shop Pro, which is basically just a clone of Photoshop. It does all the same things that Photoshop does for a fraction of the price. So it's all about, what you prefer. And now I think, like, I don't know if Corel does this, but Adobe has like a subscription model where if you want to use their program, you have to pay like a monthly or an annual fee, as opposed to, buying the program outright and you own it forever.
Right.
So that turns some people off.
Yeah, I think Adobe is a monthly or yearly subscription fee now. You're right, which is annoying. And Corel Draw was created by a fella by a guy named don't tell me, Copeland. What was this guy's name? It's a guy, Michael Copeland. He's the guy. He's British, and he moved to Canada and founded Corel Draw in 1985. And you know what the one thing about Michael Copeland was that was the most annoying? Anybody? This is pretty obvious when he's in Ottawa. The company's based in Ottawa. The company grew in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, which is the nation's capital. Anybody? You want to?
I have to think it was probably the hockey team that he liked.
Yeah, he created the Ottawa Senators, which to me are really just a wart on the face of society.
Not everybody can be the Hartford Whalers.
That's true. I actually have a Philadelphia Flyers a jersey in my closet. They're a team.
Nice.
They're a team you can just learn to love.
Absolutely.
No, that's called the Hershey Bears.
Yeah, I suppose.
We may have already talked about this, but maybe it was ESPN who did a documentary about the early 70s Flyers, the Broad Street Bullies.
Yes.
And it was the most entertaining television program I have ever viewed because those guys were true characters. The whole bunch of them talking about what it was like playing for that team. Oh,
it was a great team, but the best part, you and I did talk about it, and the best part in the whole documentary is when, what was the guy's name? I can't remember. Not Horace Kindredchuk, the other guy that was kind of like him. Anyways, one of the players said, once we got Schultze.
Oh, Schultze, Dave Schultze, yes.
Yeah, but with the guy, it was some in the documentary, the guy says, once we got Schultze, then we knew we had something.
Yes.
That was cool. He put them over the edge.
They were so fun to watch.
They were, especially in the 70s when they were just going around beating the living crap out of everybody. I was telling a story today, a hockey story today about, I was relaying a hockey story today about standing up for yourself and standing up for your team. I was relaying this to a young guy, and I said, when I was 16, 17, there was a guy that was terrorizing our league, and we were playing that team one night, and I decided I was going to be the guy that straightened this bully out. And we got into a fight. We dropped the gloves, and he just beat the living crap out of me. But the problem was, I didn't want to let go of his jersey. By the time he was finished with me, the only way I could stay standing was holding onto his jersey, because I didn't want to see the other team see me go down. But because I was holding on to his jersey, he just kept beating the living daylights out of me.
Oh, boy.
And it was like, I look good, but he beat the living bejeebus out of me. And my dad, at the end of it, after the game, says, "Why didn't you let go of his jersey?" All right. So I want to follow your career. You went to university. You did computer-aided design. And at that time, you were working for Custom Model Railroads?
So I worked for Jeff at Custom Model Railroads for about a year or so. And then at that point, we wrapped up a layout project and he didn't need me anymore. So I went and found a real job in CAD drafting, doing civil engineering stuff, actually. And, had a good time, made some good friends. And then the market turned in 2008 and I had some personal stuff happen that my mother got diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease in the spring of 2009. So at that point, I was actually unemployed. So I worked as her caregiver for about a year until I had a chance to take another drafting opportunity. So I did that. And so I went back to doing some drafting again. And, in the meantime, I'm still, selling decals. I started working for Spring Mills Depot. This is all weekend warrior stuff and on evenings and weekends.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And then I bounced around, did a few other CAD jobs, did some really cool stuff. I worked in home remodeling for a little while, designing new bathrooms and kitchens for people in the greater Baltimore area, where a bathroom reno started at $30,000 and went up, and a kitchen reno started at $50,000 and went up. My first big job, my boss was installing somebody's kitchen on Christmas Eve, and making sure all the appliances worked and everything for Christmas Day. And when we finished that job that following February with add-ons, that job was over $750,000. Yeah, I got to do some cool stuff like that. Then I worked for a company in my about 20 minutes south of me doing architectural veneer work that we designed everything from custom elevator cabs to conference room tables and everything in between. And I was doing that and had fun doing it. And then Rapido put an ad out that they were looking for somebody. And, if you have a chance to apply for your dream job, why not do it? So I did.
Where'd they put the ad?
They put it on Facebook.
On their page, like?
Yes. So initially it was November of 21 that they were looking for a graphic artist. And I applied and I probably would have gotten it, but unfortunately, they're a Canadian company and Canadian law says they need to hire Canadians first. So they did. But I was told by both Bill Schneider, who I was friends with and worked with on some projects for him, providing him artwork and pictures and all that. And also Mohan, the chief operating officer, that John, keep an eye out that we will be looking for more people in the future. So then in March of 2022, they advertised on Facebook that they were looking for a project manager. And, it was kind of funny. I saw the ad, but also I had a bunch of friends also message me about it. I have a good friend that I help him at his hobby shop at Warriors Hobbies that he said, "Hey, John, this job's made for you." So I applied and, in the better course of a month, I got the job and it's been a whirlwind ever since.
Right. And what was the hobby shop you say you work at?
That was White Rose Hobbies.
Okay. Is it not going anymore?
They are. I started working for him part-time right after they expanded their shop. This was the guy like Trains. He was working for Norfolk Southern, but had enough background knowledge that he understood the hobby side of the industry. So he decided to start his own shop. And he was so successful that, he started out in a little, 20 by 20 rental unit. And he's since partnered with a former railroad coworker of his that they now make enough money that they both quit working for the railroad to work at the shop full time. And they have a barn that is basically considered a hobby emporium, that about half the shop is trains and the other half is a mix of RC, Lego, and some other cool stuff. And they do have some, they have an nationally rated outdoor crawler course for RC cars and also a asphalt course that they do races on weekends and all that. But the co-owners of the shop met each other because they worked for the railroad.
Right. And have either of you guys, Tom or Dave, have you guys heard of White Rose Hobbies?
I have not, and I'd love to know where it is.
So White Rose Hobbies, the best way to get there is on US 30. They are west of York, and they are basically very close to the intersection of US 30 and 116. And so I know where Tom's going to go with this. There's a chance, we've been talking about this for Tom Stock 2024, that if we do go visit Dave Trone's layout in Hanover, which is one of the layouts I operate on, that it might be worth it to make a bus stop to White Rose Hobbies.
That would be cool. Would that be cool, Tom?
It would.
Is it
would. I've heard of it, but I have never been there.
Okay. Are you starting to worry about Tom Stock 2024, the Queso Cowboys birthday roundup?
No, not at all.
Attaboy. This time you and I are going to enjoy it rather than worry about it.
Yeah, I'm going to let somebody else do all the work.
Have you told Deb yet? You might want to ease into that.
yeah. That I'm finessing that.
Well, Lionel, I can tell you that Tom and I have talked, and I've tried to give him a few suggestions on some fun things we can do as a group as well. So we'll see what happens.
Oh yeah, fun things as a group. Wow.
Well, as much as the group loves cheese balls, Dave Trone, whose layout we're trying to possibly get to go visit, he also works at Utz, and you can actually do a factory tour of the Utz plant.
Wow.
So how can you envision a tour bus of 50-some people showing up at the Utz plant and all going home with a barrel of cheese balls?
Wow. That would be a day and a half.
Yeah.
That would be fun, but we got to go to Jerry Britton's layout too.
Yes.
Somehow we have to go to Jerry Britton's layout. That is like number one on bus day. Is bus day Thursday or Friday?
I don't know yet.
Oh, you don't know
Tom's
yet?
not in charge. You wouldn't know.
Oh, you don't know yet. Okay, so because you have to contact the Reading and
I have to contact the railroad.
Reading and Northern.
Yep.
Is that it?
Correct.
Okay. Well, remind them that we were there before when you contact them.
Oh, I think they'll know.
That sounds ominous.
Yeah,
Some things are just unforgettable.
Wear one of your modeler's life shirts when you go. So yeah, depending on their schedule, you're thinking we have to go either Thursday or Friday, depending on what suits their particular schedule.
Correct. I'll be honest. I have not even really thought about it at all yet, because I thought about it so early before that now I know, a lot of the planning that goes into it. So it should be easier this time.
Tom, it's like I said earlier, you're chasing that boulder down the hill, and now you know what to expect.
Yeah. So now it's going to be easy.
That's why, Dave, I was telling you there at NERPM, that's why we decided we're going to go to Tom Stock. It will be every 2 years.
Well, that's a good idea. Maybe I should do
that. So then you weren't really working in the industry other than on the side on the weekends with your decal company. How old is Mount Vernon Shops now? Like, how long have you actually been running Mount Vernon Shops?
It's been about 20 years now.
Yeah, like you should figure out when the 20-year mark was and post that or something, because it's a legitimate little business. Like the website works really well. How often do you spend time on the website?
The initial setup took some time, but now it basically runs itself. And it's a matter of, if you see at the top on the homepage, there's some banners. Every once in a while with my new stuff, I'll, draw up a new banner and rotate some things out. But at this point, it's kind of self-sufficient. Right.
And a fun thing to do, I'd imagine. I mean, I think it's probably fun whenever you get an order and then you mail them out and all that stuff.
Yep, it is.
It would be.
And I could speak from experience. You can't just buy one.
How many times do you think you've ordered from Mount Vernon Shops, Dave?
Probably half a dozen times.
There you go. Yeah, so that's how I found out about Mount Vernon Shops, John. That's why I got so angry, because Dave mentioned it offhand, and then I clicked on it, and I'm like, well, why wouldn't he tell me any of this stuff?
I'm sorry. We got talking about the Pennsylvania Railroad, my father, and we just kind of went down that road.
Oh, all right. So then between a brief stint at Custom Model Railroads when you were like 19 or 20 or 21, And then when you got hired by Rapido Trains, you were working regular day jobs, like not in the model railroad industry, but you were working your decal company, and you were doing some work for other people like Spring Mills and stuff like that.
Yep.
All right. So then you got hired by Rapido Trains.
Your fast track to model railroading fun.
Rapido Trains, your fast track to model railroading fun.
You know, more and more people are telling me they love the one with the Latin singer. That seems to be the one that's the most popular of the two jingles. Could be H.O., could be N. Your fast track. It's Rapido. Okay, so let's talk about your layout now.
Yeah.
Because
I was going to say it was kind of funny you interviewing me that it makes for good podcasting that they can't see Lionel's face when I said I'm doing a 4-deck model railroad and his eyes bugged out.
Yeah, exactly. Because I just been interviewing Bill Chapin, who's doing a 3-deck model railroad in, 40 by 30 foot room or something. And now you're telling me you're doing a 4-deck in a what was it, 12 by 30 or something?
Yeah, 12 by 40.
12 by 40. Yeah. And the helix for this thing must be massive.
In height, yes. I don't, I've operated on model railroads for 20 years now. And, one of the things you learn as you start operating is you don't run trains fast. So while I may have that much railroad, quote unquote, it's not going to be fast trains. So when I'm not running that fast, that means I can get away with running some smaller radiuses and still get away with running what I would need to run. So, I do have multiple helixes that are going to be there because of the layer issue, but I have enough experience to know that running slow enough, if the track works good, then I shouldn't have any problems.
Did you say multiple helixes?
Well, I'll be doing, yes.
How many?
So, probably 3.
Throughout the
3 helixes.
Well, so what happens is because of the way the decks are separated and the way the railroad is designed, it's pretty much a prototypical track plan. And to go from the first deck to the second deck, which is basically the first scenic deck, that's that main trunk where Conrail will be going north and south. So on either end, you have a helix to go in and out of staging. After that, the second scenic deck is 2.5 miles of industrial canyon, and that's basically treated that there's one helix on one end that will go from the main Conrail yard up onto that line to feed the Conrail side, and the Western Maryland side is there, but spurs off on that same level, and then it gets to the other end, and for Conrail to disappear off the road and keep going beyond the layout, as Alan McClellan would call it, that goes down to a helix, but then the Western Maryland rides that same helix and goes up to the very top deck, which is then what I call the greatest hits of the York subdivision of the Western Maryland. And then for continuity purposes, I have one more helix that goes from that deck all the way back down the staging.
Like down 4 decks?
Yes.
Wow.
And I'll actually be poking through a wall for that one, so this way it's out of the way.
And do you have a track plan?
I do. Again, because of my CAD background, I actually do have AutoCAD and I learned that. So after I bought the house, I measured everything up and started drawing. And, I figured out what was most important to me to model, which was that 2.5 miles of industrial canyon. And then from that, I went either direction and said, okay, but I want a yard on this side, but I also want a yard on this side. So the only way to go was either helix up or helix down.
Right.
And so that's what I did.
And how long did it take you to come up with this plan? By the way, we got to do something. I'm looking at a picture here. At the track work continues moving west along Western Maryland. This is from May 13th. Chesapeake York subdivision along the Conrail Spring Grove Industrial Track. And it's in a corner. And I can see 3 of the decks. Maybe the 4th one is farther down. Oh, I think the 4th one has got to go up. But
yeah, fourth one needs to be on top of that yet.
Yeah, we got to do something with these inside corners. They got to be curved fascia on there. You don't want an inside 90-degree. It takes away from the aesthetics of the railroad. Am I right, Tom?
Yeah. I've tried to keep all my stuff rounded or curved or at a minimum angled.
Yeah, at a minimum angled. Yeah, I've seen a couple of spots there where we've got 45 or 40-degree angles and things like that, which doesn't look too bad at all. But the inside square 90-degree corner, we got to lose that, John.
Hey, Lionel.
Yeah.
I know better than to argue with you, but all I will say is that when operating on a multi-deck railroad, and I'm sure Tom can vouch for this, and maybe Dave too, that when you're operating, your eyes are drawn to the deck you're operating on.
Sure.
And kind of once everything's painted black, it shadow boxes it. So, once I paint it black, you won't see it, quote unquote.
I won't back down on this one. You gotta have curved fascias. It's just so much more aesthetically pleasing, because at the end of the day, when the layout is air quotes finished, it's as important what it looks like when trains aren't running too. It's when you walk into the room, it's important to see an aesthetically pleasing to the eye. When you draw stuff, it can't be all 90-degree inside corners, is it? You want it flowing. When you were doing a $750,000 kitchen, I bet you it wasn't. I bet you were trying to make it flowing.
Yeah. Actually, that one was a fun one because the kitchen, when we knocked down some walls, was so big. Instead of having one gigantic island, we did 2 islands in that kitchen.
Because it flowed.
Yes.
So why 4 decks? What's the height of the lowest deck?
The lowest deck that will be scenic will be 25 inches off the floor.
And some of the decks won't be scenic?
Well, staging won't be scenic.
All right. And where's it on? Which deck is it on?
Staging is the very bottom deck, and that's just 16 inches off the floor.
Well, that's 15. That bottom deck is 15 inches off the floor.
Yeah, 15 to 16 inches, yes.
Then the next deck is 24 inches off the floor.
Yes.
So there's only 9 or 10 inches between decks there.
Correct. But it's staging, so it doesn't need to be as open.
But you need to see it.
Yes.
And then the next deck, what height is it at? The third deck?
That is at 42 inches.
So there's 18 inches between decks on that one.
Yeah.
And the last deck?
It's another 18 inches to the top deck then, from that middle deck.
So it's 5 feet.
Yeah.
So at what point did you decide you were going to build this thing?
You mean my monster?
Yeah.
I drew it up and I was like, okay, it fits. I know there's going to be a lot of people that'll look at me and say I'm crazy, but they'll also know me and say, yeah, John's crazy, but he could also probably pull it off. And so really what you see on the Facebook page is me starting, and I'm kind of experimenting on that 12 by 12 foot portion of the basement. And if it works, it works. And if not, maybe it'll be time to go back to the drawing board. I'm not afraid to pull a Jason and tear something out if it doesn't work.
Right. That's for sure. That's the thing you want to be able to do, is not be so attached to it that you can't improve it. I mean, I did that with my own layout,
I figured the worst I can do is say I tried. And if it doesn't work, I can move on and try something different. So We'll see.
So this is being built. So what? Right now you're building the 4 decks in a particular area?
Yes, I am. So because of the floor print of the room it's in, there's the main opening to the main basement area, but also the landing. Originally, so I have a 70s brick rancher, and originally there were steps that went up the side from the driveway up to where the main front door of the house is, and there was a landing with a concrete pad built there, and under that concrete pad was originally where the well came in, and later it is now where the water meter is, but I have that opening there. So basically it segregates the portion of the room where my model railroad is being built, that I have a 12 foot by 12 foot area that I'm basically using as my experimental test bed.
Okay.
And then eventually I'll bridge that gap where the axis is to the water meter, and then build the rest of the layout.
Wow. So is there a plan somewhere published that people can see? Not really.
Think so.
But maybe not.
Not yet. I'm looking here. There's no, not yet.
Okay.
But I can make that happen.
Yeah, no, people would be interested for sure to see it. And then I'm looking at a picture from May 6th, and it's kind of looking a little bit more. It gives you more of an idea of this particular 12 by 12 section.
Yeah.
All right. We gotta do something with these inside 90-degree corners. That just won't work. I'm sorry, but I have to put my foot down. It's pretty easy to put a little bit of plywood with a bit of curve on there, and then fasten the fascia to it. Boom. All of a sudden, it's beautiful work. It's not so mechanical, because a model railroad is a piece of art. It has to have flowing lines. Am I right, Dave?
100%.
Does your layout have square corners, Dave?
I need to plead the fifth. I don't have a layout. I have 4 modules in a modular layout.
That's right.
They're all square.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Nothing flows except the trains.
Yeah, there you go. All right. So where are you now? You're just building it in this one particular room.
Yeah. So, I was, I put a few posts up. I was working on a structure kit for a little bit as a little distraction.
Right.
In the meantime, I've been wiring up the current deck you see is what is the top right now of that industrial canyon, and wiring it up, making sure everything works electrically. Because it really sucked to, lay all that track and then find out that you have a lot of shorts. So I'm trying to be good about, making sure everything's wired up. At some point I'll start on that deck, with the exception of 4 turnouts. Everything else is using Blue Point switch machines, because aesthetically, I understand, the red caboose ground throws are great, but aesthetically, I think that takes away from the overall aesthetics of a scenic model railroad. So all of my switch machines are under the deck. So in this case, I'm using mostly Blue Points for what I have. At some point, I might switch over and use the bullfrogs from our buddy Tim Warris at Fast Tracks. Right. But yeah, all my switch machines are under the deck, so you can't see them. So I'll need to attach clevises and rods that go through the front of the fascia to operate those. And then at some point, I need to finish a helix. So I've been pricing out tempered hardboard for that right now, and then start building up.
Tempered hardboard?
Yes.
Why that for the helix?
So for the helix, there's a website called AppalachianRailroadModeling.com that has a lot of really cool Appalachian Railroad railroads itself, operations things, track plans. But he has a really cool article on how to build a double pinwheel helix. And what it is, you basically take the helix, draw it as an octagon, and then you double layer how you build your helix on the way up. And that's how I'm doing mine, using a tempered hardboard at basically it's 1/8-inch masonite, but I double the thickness. So when it's done, it's going to be 1/4 inch thick.
And it's only going to be your road bed is only going to be 1/4 inch thick
on the helix, but I'm also supporting it with threaded rod and blocks.
Okay.
Tom's not too excited about that 1/4 inch.
That seems awful thin.
I know. So far, so good. We'll see how things go. And again, if worst case scenario, I rip it out and off we go. But this is why it's called experimenting.
True. So why do you feel like you can get away with 1/4 inch when pretty much everybody on the planet says minimum is 1/2 inch plywood? Like, what's your helix made out of, Tom?
Mine is 3/4 and 1/2 inch ply laminated together. Also secured with the threaded rods.
So your road bed is 1.25 inches thick?
In the helix, yes.
Okay, no, I'm just asking.
Yep. I know.
Yeah, no, I mean, so you kind of went the opposite way of 1/4. Instead of 1/4 of an inch, you've got 1.25 inches.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not going to warp at all. And why did you decide to go that thick? Why did you decide you had to go beyond 3/4 of an inch?
Because it was a helix, and it was not necessarily supported by a whole lot of bench work underneath.
Right.
So we decided that it needed to be thicker to prevent warping.
Right, and because you guys...
Or any kind of bending or flexing.
Yeah, and you guys had already tried to build a helix from some kit or something that you'd bought.
Yes, and that's where my reaction was coming from. The helix kit that I had bought was using a 1/4-inch plywood as the base, and probably one of the happiest days of my model railroading career on the cross line was when we took that thing up to my brother-in-law's house and gave it the Viking funeral.
In other words, it kind of went up in flames?
It did.
Okay. So you got 1 1/4 inch, and we got this young man with 1/4 inch. Well, have you discussed this with Jason? I can't believe Jason's given you the high ball sign for 1/4 inch thick.
No, Jason has not been involved.
I understand that. Perhaps maybe he should be.
John, will you invite us to the fire?
Wow.
Yeah, but Dave, I know you only want to come because of the picture I posted on Facebook tonight. So we'll see.
So why do you feel like? I mean, you're a good guy, John. I wouldn't be asking you these questions if you weren't a good guy, because that's what this podcast is all about. Is everybody throwing out their ideas, and some of them work and some of them don't. And so how did you manage to come up with this 1/4 inch tempered hardboard idea?
Well, at the time when I started on the railroad, I was still working for the custom woodworking company near about 20 minutes south of me. And I was fortunate that I had access to a gigantic CNC routing machine. And I could also get material at cost or around cost. So I initially designed my helix that I actually had a routed cut that it transitioned from being a curved helix into an angled helix, and had that routed for me out of a piece of 5x10 hardboard. And including the cost of routing everything and the material, it only cost me $14 to get everything cut. But that's because I worked for the company, so it was easy and cheap. And again, I heard you over the monitor in the green room that, moderators are typically frugal. So I'm, and especially these days with the price of wood post-COVID, oh my.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll be interested to see if it works. See if you can support it. See if you can keep it from warping.
Otherwise, I'll let you know when the bonfire is.
Yeah, exactly. No, but it's interesting to see. And by the way, you do have a plan posted on your Facebook page.
Okay.
It's on, you posted it on September 12th, 2022. And it's a PDF, and it's the Darling basement in York, Pennsylvania. And it's a really good, it's a pretty good plan. It's certainly easy to look at anyways. Wherever it is, whatever tab I've got it under now.
I have made a few adjustments since then. When you look at that, the orange box in the upper left corner is the electrical breaker box, and I've since decided that I don't want any layout near that, so I've reconfigured how all of that is. So this way, there's enough room there that can freely open and close without any impediment.
Well, that's a good idea. Yeah, so you've made a few changes, but this is the basic idea.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. Wow. This could go on forever.
It could. And that's the thing. For the most part, this track plan is about 95% prototypical. The only thing I did was I flipped the orientation of 1 yard. And otherwise, Lionel, if you came to visit me, I could show you these locations, and it would look just like this. The diamond interchange between Conrail and Monpas still is there and still exists today.
And why is that so important to you? Why is it that you're so close to the prototypical track plan?
For me, I think it's pretty cool that I can manage to make it fit and do something that I'm passionate about with the local railroad history.
Okay.
A lot of guys like to model what they remember or something that speaks to them, and I like the local modeling scene, the local railroad scene. So that's why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it.
And what era is this going to be?
So this is 1978 to 1980.
Okay.
So the track plan itself is prototypical, but the operating scheme I am tweaking a little bit with history. That prototypically, when Hurricane Agnes came through in 72, it wiped out a lot of bridges. So then this line was not nearly as important as I'm making it out to be on my model railroad. So on my model railroad, I'm following the premise that Agnes took out more of a different rail line, so the only way for Conrail to get south to Baltimore and Washington, D.C. is now by this railroad instead.
Okay. So, so you're taking that prototype and you've, like so many people do, you've changed the history a little bit to make it more suitable for operations.
Yep.
And you said you operate on a few layouts. What layouts do you operate on?
When I first started operating, give or take 20 years ago, back when I was young and had more time, I was operating on many railroads many times a week. That I had railroad club on Monday nights. One of my friends would operate on a Tuesday night sometimes. There was a guy I would operate on. He was operating every Friday night. And then depending on what weekend it was, I was at different railroads. That if it was the second weekend in the month, I was at Jeff Warner's. If it was the third weekend, I was at local friends. If it was the fourth weekend, I was driving up to Allentown with James Mattern to Larry Reynolds' place in Allentown. James and I have known each other for a long time. He can tell you stories of me falling asleep in his car going to and from Larry Reynolds' house. But so recently, last year, Otto Vondrak with RMC featured Steve Mallory's layout and Ken McCory's layout as a contrast and comparison on two guys modeling the same model railroad line. I was fortunate. I was part of Steve Mallory's operating crew before he had signals, and then seeing his railroad develop as he added signals, it was pretty amazing to see how much radio chatter died down. And part of the fun was, in addition to Steven modeling the Buffalo line, he also worked for Norfolk Southern as a dispatcher, dispatching that same railroad line. And we always swore that Steven dispatched better with no sleep than he did with sleep, no matter what railroad he went to go dispatch on.
It's amazing the number of full-time railroaders, one-to-one railroaders that are model railroaders. That's becoming more and more and more evident as each week and month passes by, I think. I think
it's more socially acceptable for railroaders to be open about being rail fans and model railroaders. I think there was a bit of a taboo.
That's all part of the hobby becoming more and more mainstream. You know what I think, Dave?
I do.
Oh, do you?
It involves model railroad goo.
Yeah, I think the hobby's going to explode, and we're all going to be covered in model railroad goo. That's my take on the whole thing.
I find that when I'm pretty open about telling people I'm into model trains, and more often than you think, I get a "oh really," and not in a negative way. It's a positive, because people have a positive recollection either from their childhood or they want to know more. Where do you do that? Tell me about it. And I agree. There's a lot of people out there who are drawn to this hobby, and it's terrific. It's a fun hobby.
It is a fun hobby,
with lots of great people.
And I said on some podcast recently, I was just listening to it, the secret sauce of model railroading is the camaraderie that comes from it.
I'll agree with that. Both through my business and just being in the hobby, I've met and made some great friends from around the world. It's been fun for me to tell people, I've shipped decals to Japan, China, Eastern Europe, Africa. People model, and they model what I'm doing decals of. It's kind of something neat to figure that there's somebody somewhere that likes U.S. modeling, so they're going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Somebody's going to say something?
No, that's neat that there's people all around the world who enjoy your decals.
Oh,
well, and in line, I'll tell you, this was the funny thing for me that, growing up, I was in the trains because of my father, but also I was in music. So I played trumpet through basically from elementary school through high school. And I was a band geek in high school. And all my friends knew me as a band geek. After graduating high school, I still played, trumpet for a little bit. And I was in a local community band. And, then through the miracles of Facebook, you reconnect with your old high school classmates. And one of them was like, John, if I'd known you were in the trains, I would have had you over to the house. My dad was the treasurer he was the CFO for the local short line. It's like, oh my. And of course, now he's retired and all this, but it's, we find out these funny things about each other now that you never knew. To the same degree, I have a friend of mine from high school that, he was a football star, went to college as a football star, got a degree, wound up being a gym teacher locally, and decided it just wasn't for him. He wasn't cut out to be a gym teacher, started his own business, and he's following his dream, and he's an auctioneer now. But what that means is now, too, is he knows I'm in the trains. So if he has a large collection show up and he doesn't know what he's looking at, he calls me and says, hey, John, you need to look at this for me. Tell me what I have. So it's pretty cool to still have those connections to, friends from back in high school, and they had no idea I was in the trains. And now, I'm, living the dream, doing it professionally, and getting to see friends and enjoy sharing the hobby.
Yeah. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. I mean, now, Tom, I know you'll agree with me on this because you've heard me say it before, and I know you back me on this 100%. But I'm convinced that Al Gore invented the internet strictly for the aid of model railroading.
That was the only reason.
Yeah, absolutely. It was he saw the need.
They said it was, defense related just to pacify the lamestream media, but it really was about the hobby.
Yeah, hey, you're talking to a media guy there. Careful, settle down, buddy. Don't
I know Tom was joking. I know Tom was making a ha-ha.
Yeah,
right.
You're absolutely hoping that's the case anyways, for sure.
Dave knows how much respect I have for him and his profession.
Here's what I can tell you, Dave. If you guys get into a tussle and Tom starts beating the crap out of you, let go of his jersey. Don't hold on to his jersey. I was my dad's like patching me up in the dressing room and I'm just beat to a pulp. And he kept saying, why didn't you let go of the guy's jersey? All right. What else? Oh, I got one last question for you, John. You'll be back on again anyways. What is it about this hobby? Tell me what it is you think about this. What is it about this hobby? Because I'm becoming more and more convinced. The more people I meet, it's like once you go in, they try to get out and they drag you back in. I'm beginning to think it might be, I'm having this theory of there's a fairy angel, a fairy that goes from hospital to hospital and picks out individuals and sprinkles them with pixie dust, model railroad pixie dust and that. Because for the people that are in the hobby, they're like you can't get out. What is it about this hobby?
I think what really makes model railroading different from other hobbies is that you can do as much or as little as you want, and to you're enjoying it. So you can get the guy that just started and he's buying train sets and setting them up on his floor for Christmas, or he has, a door, that hollow core door, that 4x8 in his basement. But then there's guys like Tom that built a purpose-built building with the barn and a multi-deck model railroad that he's fully signaling and, having fun with it. And everybody has fun in their own way. And all of us like to share it with each other. So that's really the cool part about model railroading. You don't get that from stamp collecting or RC racing or, building cars. That there's no definition of what is model railroading. It can be many things to many people, and we all have fun in our own way, and that's how we each enjoy it.
Yeah, that's part of it too. Is it's just with a lot of hobbies, there's an end point where you got to get something done. Whereas with model railroading, you get a locomotive and three feet of track and run it up and down the track and run the light. And nowadays, play with the lights and all kinds of stuff. and have a great time just doing that.
And I think there's an opportunity for us all to inspire others. Even if we don't have a big layout, we may develop a special skill on one small aspect of the hobby, and that's something we can share and we can admire and be inspired by that big layout or a small layout. But then there's something we do where the guy with the big layout says, hey, I've been trying to figure out how to do that. Now I get it. There's all kinds of opportunities for us to help each other. And
yeah. I was talking to a young fella named John McGuire, who owns Garden State Model Works. And his thing is, he was the guy that was installing all the ditch lights and step lights on Uncle Dave's locomotives. And I interviewed him, and I thought to myself, maybe that's one of the things that's so different now, is there's all these opportunities for people to have these small industries, small businesses, that it's almost part of the hobby is that you can have a small business in model railroading, make a couple of bucks, and get the experience of what running a small business is like. You know, that's part of it too. It's just, there's so much to offer.
There really is. There's so many essential elements of the hobby. None of us can master them all. And there's really nothing wrong with DCC installs are one example, especially sound installs. People are just willing to pay someone to do that for them. I had a friend do an install for me in a one of those Walthers SW1s, the first run. That's a challenge to put sound in. He did a magnificent job, and it sounds amazing. And I'm just delighted to have that locomotive now, ready to paint and ready.
Yeah, exactly. And you're just happy to run it on the track and listen to the sounds and play with the controller. And I told you I bought John Sacerdotti's locomotive.
You did. You did. That's great.
He had a Green Mountain RS1, no weathering on it, but sounded great and just looked really cool. It was pretty. It was a pretty little locomotive. And
nice.
Go ahead. Somebody's going to say
no.
something.
No. I'm going to say, hey, it sounds great.
Yeah. So anyways, I'm at John's. His was the layout I went to see after NERPM, and I'm at John's, and he's talking to some other fellas, and I'm admiring this layout or this locomotive going around the layout, and I took some photos of it with my phone and this and that. And when John was done, we're chatting away, and I said, "Man, I love this locomotive because it had sound and everything. I love this locomotive. Is it ever cool?" And he goes, "You want to buy it?" And I'm like, "Sure." I said, "Well, how much?" He says, $150. I went, "Sold." I have absolutely no use for it other than it's pretty, and it sounds good. But it was so cool. And he only wanted $150, and it had sound and everything. So now I have this locomotive that I have no need for, but I really like it. It's out of the box. I've run it a few times.
I've got several of those myself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was going to say, Lionel, it's starting to sound like mini model areas that you buy what you want, not always what you need.
Exactly. All right, that's it. We're pretty much done. Tom, can you give out our email address?
Sure. If you would like to contact us by the hip and happening method of email, our email address is modellerslife@gmail.com. That's modellerslife with one L as in railroad and not two L's as in Kelly.
You had to talk about him.
Yeah, we did so well. We made it all so far. Hey, tomorrow night, Kelly and I and the Wiz, Rich Winiski, we're going to interview Ken McQuarrie.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that'll be cool. I'm figuring that might be at least a two-parter, talking to Ken, because there's only like 1,000 questions to ask him.
And what a layout.
What a layout. What a good guy. He's a good guy, too. Nice guy.
He's a great guy. Just a wonderful guy.
Isn't that always...
He is a great customer.
Is he a good customer of yours?
Yeah. He's bought decals for me, and I've done some work for him. Yeah.
Okay. What kind of work have you done for him?
Well, some custom things here and there. That somebody like him with his layout. Sometimes you need quantity. So I'll
yeah, a quantity would be weird.
Whereas most people don't have that size or error that they're happy with one locomotive. He needs a dozen. So he emails me and says, "Hey, can you do this for me?" So I do it for him.
How far is York, Pennsylvania from Lebanon?
Lebanon?
No, not Lebanon. Where do you live? Robisonia. How far?
About an hour. Is
it only an hour?
Yeah. I'd give or take probably about an hour and 20 minutes or so. And it's only because I have to go around the mountain to go pick up 422 to go to Tom's house. So,
So are you going to be operate on Tom's when he gets the regular operating sessions going?
Apparently, when Tom had his testing op session, I was the first runner-up that didn't make the cut.
Oh, was there a bit of a problem there, Tom, that we need to work on?
No, it was first come, first serve, and I had committed to the number of spots, and John was the first runner-up, like you said. If somebody would have canceled, he would have been the first person to get called.
You couldn't fit in just one more, eh?
Well, we were shaking it down. I wanted to see if that volume of people would be sufficient or insufficient, and bringing in one more person would have messed with my test parameters.
Tom,
nothing personal.
Tom, can I ask you a question? If I ask you a question, will you give me an honest answer?
I will try.
Okay. Am I like a shirt with a really scratchy tag in it for you?
No. I've known you long enough to I've known you long enough to be able to anticipate some, but not all, but some of what's going to happen. Like when you showed up in my clinic at NERPM, I'm like, all right, I'm going to get some good questions here, and I did.
Yeah, that's true. So, that's true. That was a great clinic, by the way.
Wait. So were some of those questions not good?
Yeah.
Oh.
That was Tom's clinic. Dave, did you get a chance to see it?
I did not.
See, I did. I was in the back of the room next to the air conditioner.
Well, the beauty of Tom's clinic was he hit all the points that you got to hit. It was a well laid out clinic. There wasn't too many slides. He didn't have to talk too fast. He spoke up, which is key. The absolute number one key. There's nothing worse than going to a clinic where you can barely hear the guy and he kind of talk like this and you can't really understand what he's saying. And you're sitting 10 rows back and you're like, I really wish I could hear this. He spoke up, which was key. Great slides and not too long, like 45 minutes. And then it was time for questions. It was a great clinic. Well done.
Thank you.
Yes.
Did you make it to Chris Adams' layout on Sunday?
I did not. That was a little bit too far south for me to make any kind of headway going home.
Oh, yeah. He was actually running trains during the open house. I know. That hasn't happened for you yet.
No, that's never happened for me. I've been to Chris Adams now at least half a dozen times, and he refuses to run trains. But maybe it's just as well because I might end up buying the locomotives.
That could be a hazard.
Yeah, exactly. What is it about this hobby? You buy stuff, the stuff looks so cool. Stuff looks so cool.
I know. I go for a weekend rail fanning in Altoona, and I end up buying a Norfolk Southern SD70 ACU for my Reading layout.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're cool. Period. End of sentence. And then my friends point out to me, you didn't buy one, you bought two. Okay, I bought two.
All right, let's get out of here because this has been fun. We'll talk to John again. What'd you think, John, for your first full-length interview?
This was good, Lionel. I'm looking forward to coming back.
Okay. You don't sound that enthusiastic, though. You seem like you're a little...
Lionel, I can't wait to come back. I would be more than willing to participate in anything you're willing to throw me into.
Just as we're talking, I got a notification on Facebook that Jason Schron reacted to my comment. It was his picture of his mission model's etch plate, and I put on there, "Hey, I think that's mine," and he reacted to that comment.
That's interesting because I know where he should be right now, and that's interesting.
Yeah. He should be wherever he is. He's the boss.
Yes.
He should be wherever he is. All right, that's it. We've done the email address. Now, if you didn't catch the email address, if you go to our website at modelerslife.com and scroll down just a little bit, there's a picture of the moderately agitated mailboy in a particularly agitated state. But you just click on that picture and boom, the email address comes up, and all you got to do is fill in your subject line and your text. And we love to get emails, don't we, Tom?
We do.
We may never answer them again because the mailboy's gone to Scotland and apparently he's never coming home. But we do love to get emails.
He has been away for quite some time.
I think it's like a 6-week trip. Let me ask.
I thought last I saw he was at Pearson, but we all know that getting around Pearson is insane. So
yeah, well, maybe he is back now. I don't know. Let me ask you this question, John.
Yes.
If you go on a 6-week trip of a lifetime, would you be on Facebook posting memories from 3 years ago with pictures of your dog?
I don't know. It depends what you're doing. I mean, are you just chilling out in the hotel room, or are you?
Well, that's what I think he's doing. Yeah, he's just chilling out and posting memories. Exactly. He's got nothing to do. He's between trains. He's between this boat and that boat, or he's between flights or something, and he's killing time.
Between meals of haggis.
Between what meals?
Of haggis.
Of haggis, yeah. John, have you ever wanted a T-shirt with a hot dog on it?
I would love a T-shirt with a hot dog on it.
Well, if you go to Midwest Model Railroad and their URL is midwestmodelrr.com and scroll across the navigation bar to Other and click on that, the AML shop will be in the drop-down menu, and you click on that and boom, you're in a wonderland of AML merchandise, hats, hoodies, mugs, T-shirts, whatever you could possibly need. And in there's a T-shirt with a hot dog on it. Modelers.
Wow.
Yeah. So you might want to pick one of those up sometime. Oh, I was just in a Rapido video with Jeremy, too, the other day. I
heard about that.
Did you hear about that?
Well, I saw pictures. I'll put it that way.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I had a bit part. I say I had a starring role, but I think in reality I had a bit part. I hope I don't end up on the cutting room floor. That would be a tragic ending to my big break at Rapido.
And just not a failure to recognize your talent.
There you go. That's what we're going for. All right. And also, for any of you that are listening to this on the free channel, if you love this podcast and you'd like twice as much podcasting every week for just a few cents a day, you click on the same website, you scroll down and click on the Patreon button, Patreon window, whatever it is. It'll take you to a page that explain all to you about Patreon, and just for a few cents a day, you can have twice as much podcasting because every Monday it's free and every Tuesday it's behind our paywall, I guess is what you would call it. But behind there, you will find a down-home, countrified, fun podcast. It's all the same people, the same stuff, but we just are a little more relaxed, a little bit kind of like having after dinner on a Sunday, having a big meal at Aunt B prepared for us. And we're just... Andy? Yeah, exactly. And you'll like it. Go over there and join up for just a few cents a day, a few dollars per month, and eventually some of the old episodes are going to end up on the website behind the paywall too, because I'm starting to run out of room, so I'll stick them over there. Podcasts take up a lot of room on memory on your computer when you don't get rid of them, and you've got all the stuff to making a podcast. My computer, which has a 2 terabyte hard drive, I loaded it out and I went, uh-oh, now what do I do? So then I went to some of my old podcasts where I still had all the editing stuff in each file, and I would just take out all that stuff, and each one was like 5 megabytes. So pretty quickly I went back to having 300 megabytes worth of free space. Or gigabytes, I guess. Is it gigs? Are the big ones?
Gigs are the big ones, yeah.
Yeah. 300. Yeah, so now I've got plenty of room again. Podcasting is hard work, John.
Hey, somebody's going to do it. I hear you're one of the best.
Yeah, it's an uphill climb all the time. All right, are we all done, boys?
I believe so, sir.
I think
we're good for this time.
All right. Okay, John, now we have something important for you to do. You have to, at the end of at the appropriate moment, you need to say happy rails to you. Now, here's the key. The key is there's no singing, there's no dancing, there's no kind of interpretation. It's just a simple happy rails to you said with enthusiasm. And before that, let's everybody remember that you are a full-time employee at Rapido Trains.
Yes.
Your fast track to model railroading fun.
Tom, what happened?
Brain fart. Sorry. late in the evening.
Yeah, this is turning into a contest. Who gets to do it first?
Right. Everybody's going to be jumping. Let's all say the Rapido slogan at once.
Yeah, there you go. That would be better. All right. So, are you ready, John?
I'm ready, Lionel.
So remember. No, that's the wrong one. This is an episode. As the sun slowly sets over the back 40, and we close the barn doors. We close. How does that go? I don't even remember how that goes anymore. I should have it written down somewhere. I wonder if I have it written down anywhere because I have it memorized. Well, John, as we close the barn doors and the sun slowly sets over the back 40, I guess there's nothing else left to do except for you to say,
happy rails to you.
While in Busted Knuckle, guests of A Modeler's Life podcast stay at the Casa del Sol Motor Court and Inn, where late-night dancing at the Rumba Room is a magical event to be experienced.
It's another Lincoln Homer.